You're listening to the Cinemental Podcast.
Shall we begin?
Welcome back to the Cinemental Podcast, where we discuss mental health in cinema, television, and popular culture and how it is portrayed. What did they get right? What did they get wrong? And what should you know about mental health? I'm Jeffrey Jones, and I'm a screenwriter as well as a professor of screenwriting, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother, America's psychiatrist, Dr. Joshua Jones, who, as well as being completely skipped over for the new Avengers, is a general forensic psychiatrist. Josh, I really feel like the Avengers or the new Avengers could use a psychiatrist.
For sure. Yeah, God. You know, I have thought several times about writing short stories about being a psychiatrist for superheroes.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
It'd be really fun.
Let's make those as a YouTube short series. Yeah, I think
good idea.
Brilliant. Okay, so today we are talking about Thunderbolts. We're continuing our conversation of Thunderbolts, which was heavily about depression and bipolar disorder, more so than I ever thought it would be. I went in kind of knowing nothing about Thunderbolts. I was really pleasantly surprised to see that they covered it so well. Josh, you and I have talked a little bit about the differences between Marvel and DC. Give me your take on why Marvel movies are so good and DC movies are so bad.
Well, Jeff, I don't know if I can answer that 100% accurately with what I'm about to say, yeah. But what I can say is that Marvel has always kind of been grounded more in reality than DC Comics. Okay. And that characterization has lasted on into the movies as well. Okay. What I like to say when I think about it, and full disclosure, I was a Marvel kid growing up. Sure, I read both Marvel and DC comics, but Marvel stories and characters resonated with me far more than DC characters. Okay. And the approach that I think that Marvel writers had was that they took flawed people first, and then gave them extraordinary powers and put them in extraordinary situations and watch what happened. Okay. Conversely, DC characters are mostly gods, and then they tried to give them human flaws or something that would knock them down. The obvious examples are Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. These are basically Greek gods, right? With very few flaws, and you can kind of gin up some MacGuffin type things like kryptonite. Ooh, make Superman weak, wham wham, right? And stuff like that. The only DC character who kind of really has resonated with the mass public in terms of movies has been Batman. And right. Batman arguably is the most Marvel of DC characters. A flawed person first, who then has extraordinary wealth and then gains extraordinary abilities and gadgets and things like that. Yeah. Now, obviously, you can find examples to disprove what I've just said on both sides of the Marvel and the DC coin. Of course, Thor is a god, right? And I've already talked about Batman, and so. But I think that's what really sets them apart, and I think that's what has allowed Marvel Cinematic Universe movies to resonate more than DC movies have.
Oddly enough, the point on Thor is that. He was just an Asgardian. They didn't bring him in as a god. They brought him in as an Asgardian. And so yes, he was a god, but we saw him just be a kid. We saw him be a son to another god. But he's still just a son, and he was among other people with similar skills. So they still gave him the issues of humans more than made him a god. So okay, simply put, Marvel is about people, gave them superpowers. DC is about gods, tried to make them human. You pitched that to me the other day, Josh, and I gotta say, after thinking about it some, I absolutely hate it.
You hate my opinion?
No, I hate that. I hate that description because
it's right.
Because I didn't think of it first.
Oh, okay.
Because it's so true and so well said. And it just bothers me that that's such a great screenwriting quote and I didn't think of it first. And so I hate it. I hate everything about it because you're absolutely right.
Well, I don't think you should, and here's why I don't think you should hate it, Jeff, is that I absolutely would not have been able to construct that quote if it wasn't for having these ongoing conversations with you on this podcast, and even seeing you teach.
Yeah,
so
right.
I just
that's really nice to say.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think that should be something that is quoted. So very well done. I think that is so well said.
Wait, do you mean my quote about DC versus Marvel, or all the nice things I just said about you?
Ooh. Ooh, yeah. What do I want to put on a T-shirt first?
Oh, well, hello.
Well, hello. I just think that's so interesting. And you walk down the list, and I think you're absolutely right. And the point about Batman is so good. Who do you think was the best Batman, by the way?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, actually. And my initial knee-jerk reaction is Michael Keaton.
Okay, sure.
I really, really liked him in that. But my second is probably Robert Pattinson.
Really?
Yes, really.
Interesting.
I thought The Batman was a fantastic movie.
That's so interesting. I considered a trashterpiece. Trash story, cinematic gem. Just such a beautiful film. It was an absolute visual masterpiece with a terrible story. Terrible story.
Yeah, I don't remember the story at all.
Exactly.
But it's fine.
The only thing Batman does in that movie is solves Riddler's riddles. That's it. In every other way, the Riddler just kicks his butt up and down. And then in the end, Riddler gets away with like what he wanted to get away with. And then somehow the city starts to flood. At that point, I'd kind of fallen asleep. But like, he was Jeff, so ineffectual.
That's the Batman story.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I mean, think about the original Batman movie with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson.
That's not the original Batman movie, Josh. It was Adam West.
Okay, you are technically correct.
You're talking about the dark period of Batman.
The dark period of Batman.
Yeah, Keaton beats Joker in the first movie.
He does. He beats him, but not after, not until he's basically won the entire thing.
Well, I mean, all right. He still wins. I mean, nobody wins until the end of the movie, Josh. It'd be a weird time to win the movie in the first 10 minutes.
Now, best movie Batman villain, 100% Tom Hardy's Bane.
You're kidding, right?
Batman.
It's obviously Heath Ledger's Joker.
Hello, Batman.
I was born in the dark.
I was born in the dark. No, I think it was Bane. Is it sacrilege to say I didn't particularly appreciate Heath Ledger's Joker?
Yes, it is. Okay, let's move on from that because this was interesting. So Thunderbolts was an amazing Marvel movie about mental health, as we've said a couple times. Give me your top 5 Marvel characters of all time in terms of the portrayal of mental health, how they dealt with that character's mental health, from a doctor standpoint. Not your favorites, but from a doctor standpoint, top 5 Marvel characters.
Absolutely, Jeff. So coming in at number 5.
Any honorable mentions? No honorable mentions. No people that you're not going to see them in the top 5.
I'm going to tell you about the honorable mentions, but I'm going to do that after the list.
Okay. All right.
Okay. For a particular reason. And
Number 5.
Number 5, Moon Knight, otherwise known as Mark Spector, a.k.a. Stephen Grant, a.k.a. Jake Lockley.
A.k.a. who was the actor that played Moon Knight?
It was Oscar Isaacs. Yeah.
Okay, great. TV show.
So Mark Spector exhibits dissociative identity disorder.
Okay.
A condition where he's got multiple distinct personalities, and they portray an extreme version of it, of course. And this stems from severe childhood trauma.
Okay.
And they do a pretty good job of showing the complexities of living with DID in, of course, a very superhero world.
Sure. Love it. Okay, number 4.
Number 4, let's go with Matt Murdock, also known as Daredevil.
I don't think of him as having a mental health issue. It's very interesting. I'm excited.
Okay, so he's blind, not the mental health issue.
Right, I was
He's
gonna
the
say.
man
Even
without
I know that
fear.
one, Josh.
He's the man without fear. But what Daredevil battles throughout the comic books and even in the series is depression. He's got emotional challenges. He's got long periods of hopelessness. They don't portray this in the TV series, but in the comic books, he also struggles with alcoholism pretty significantly. He's a very, very dark character.
Can we just all admit, though, that at this point in watching all the Daredevil we've watched, at this point, I don't think he's blind.
He's got super senses. He can sense.
I don't know,
basically,
man. I think he's faking. He seems to be able to see. He's really on top of stuff.
Yeah, because he's got echolocation. He can basically
See stuff. He can basically see stuff.
but just not with his eyes.
I don't know. I think he can see. I think he's a big faker. Okay, number 3.
Number 3 is a Thunderbolt we haven't talked about already.
Ooh.
Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Bucky's got severe post-traumatic stress disorder due to his traumatic experiences both in World War II and also as the brainwashed Winter Soldier.
Right.
He's plagued by flashbacks and nightmares of the atrocities he was forced to commit. Now, of course, he also has the super serum soldier. He's 90 plus years old in the events of Thunderbolts, so he's got a lot more years to accumulate all these traumatic events. Right. And the guilt and emotional burden of his actions heavily impact his well-being and the decisions that he makes.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I think Sebastian Stan is an amazing actor, and I think that even in Thunderbolts, you know, he very clearly, like, yes, he's vaulted to this certain position because he's an Avenger. But I don't think he really likes it. I don't think he's wearing it very well. You know, like, he's still just clearly, like, on edge about everything, and he, like, tackles the detective from The Wire, Wendell Pierce. You know, he tackles him in the hallway because he's not well adjusted yet. I think that's a great call. Was that 3 or 2? That was 3?
That was 3, yeah.
That was 3.
That was
Okay,
3.
coming in at number 2.
Coming in hot at number 2 is Wanda Maximoff.
I don't know that you should have said hot right there because it was very unclear as to whether you thought she was hot or just that it's hot that we're on number 2. Coming in hot. I was like, oh, please don't be a woman. All right, number 2, Wanda Maximoff.
Coming in demurely at number 2 is Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. So she endured immense trauma throughout her whole life, and loss of her family, loss of her brother, loss of the Vision, and then kind of had a psychotic break, is what I would call it, during the events of WandaVision. And then her actions in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness pushed her into the evil category, but it was really born out of loss, trauma, and depression.
Love it. Yeah, Wanda's a great call. Okay, do you want to do your honorable mentions now, or you want to do them at the end?
Do them at the end.
Okay. Can I take a guess at your number 1?
You can.
I think it's Legion.
I didn't go with Legion. I basically kept to the MCU folks.
Okay. So because it's not in the MCU,
Yep.
So Legion's outside of the MCU. Legion exists outside
Legion's
of it.
Legion's in the X-Men world.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So number 1, who we got?
We've got Tony Stark.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, they make Tony a pretty complicated character, which I really appreciated. So does
Also,
he have
not really a superhero, just a guy with a badass suit. I just think he's like Batman in that way, which I think is great. Yeah.
So he probably has narcissistic personality disorder, at least in different parts of his life.
Yeah.
He definitely has post-traumatic stress disorder, particularly after the events of the Avengers, and it drives a lot of the plot points in the rest of the movies. In fact, Ultron was pretty much created out of Tony's misguided attempts to tackle his own PTSD after the Avengers. Right. Also, and they kind of brush over this in the movies, but in the comic books, it's a significant plot point, and one of the earliest depictions in all of comics in the 80s and 90s of severe alcoholism, which actually in the comic books disables him from being Iron Man for several years.
So Josh, tell me your honorable mentions. That's a great number 1. Give me your HMs.
Jeff, our honorable mentions is every other character who's probably got post-traumatic stress disorder in the Marvel universe,
which is every one of them.
One of the things that I think Marvel does a really good job, and again, another way that they show that they put real, human characters into these situations, is that they talk throughout the MCU, and they definitely talk about it in the comic books, about the effects of these unbelievably traumatic incidents on each other and on people. And I think I think it's really well done. It has made watching the MCU's evolution pretty interesting from a psychiatric perspective. Mm-hmm. The series that actually stands out to me was the Hawkeye miniseries, which I absolutely loved.
Yeah, it was great.
It was Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld were the stars of it. It was set around Christmas time, which I thought was really, really kind of cool in New York. And it talked about how he talked throughout the series about how he was just getting old and how the wear and tear on his body and his brain was bringing him down.
Yeah, which is something I hated about the Bane Batman with Christian Bale, that he was just like started as old and rickety, and he just spent most of the movie being old and rickety. It was like, I don't want to see that in a Batman movie. It's still great, still a great film, but like, he just was like, oh God, I'm tired and blah blah, and I've got no cartilage in my knees anymore, and all this and that. It's just, I don't know. Don't be sad. I just don't like when characters are so sad.
One of the best old man trying to make it appear like a movie should still be happening around him was in the 6th Rocky movie, Rocky Balboa, where he gets the chance to fight against the current champion in an exhibition, and his trainer says, "You got bone spurs, you got cartilage,
you got calcium deposits on most of your joints. So sparring is out.
All we're gonna do is build up muscle so you can throw some hurting bombs."
Yeah, oh, so good. This is such a terrible impression of that guy. I apologize to that actor for just how awful that was. But you tried, and that's what I appreciate, man. I appreciate you making the effort. Go ahead and tell us how terrible that was in the comments. All right, Josh, I've got some. This is usually the day that we talk about some pop culture stuff. There's just been some stuff that's happened in the media that I want to address. Talk to me about the Surgeon General.
Sure. So Donald Trump withdrew his first Surgeon General nominee and has now nominated a doctor named Casey Means. And look, you're going to read a lot of stuff about Casey Means. I don't know if Casey Means is a good person or not. But the story is that Dr. Means got her MD, then went to do an ear, nose, and throat fellowship or a residency at Oregon Health and Science University. Dr. Means didn't complete that residency. Mm-hmm. She left, I believe, in the 4th year. And the story that she has told about it is that she left because she didn't think that traditional medicine was going in the right direction, and she went out and started a health and wellness company on her own. In the current political environment, especially with the MAHA movement and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as in the cabinet, that has gotten a lot of play. That's got a lot of credence, and so Dr. Means has been nominated as the Surgeon General. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, and that's not my point. I think Dr. Means deserves to, be called Dr. Means. She has her MD. Just because she didn't complete a residency, it doesn't take away from that. Not completing a residency just means that you haven't gained special expertise in a subspecialty of medicine.
Okay.
It may very well be that that's the right person to step out of the medical industrial complex and take a look around and say, hey, we could be doing things differently. I don't know about that, and I hope she gets a fair hearing. I don't know her. But what I want to draw attention to is something very insidious around the coverage of Dr. Means. And this comes from a Vanity Fair article, and I've been reading a lot of Vanity Fair's reporting. They went back and talked to people who knew her during her time in residency, including one of her attending physicians and then a couple fellow residents who presumably are now ENT surgeons. And the line in Vanity Fair that chilled me to my core was that the two physicians, it didn't say they were researchers, didn't say they were just physicians. The two physicians would only speak off the record about her because they were afraid of retaliation by the Trump administration. And that's crazy chilling.
Yeah.
That is First Amendment violating, discourse destroying, bone chilling stuff.
Yeah.
That I think we have to be paying more attention to.
Yeah, and look, that's going to bring me to my next point. I had this thought this week. I think all throughout, political discourse, basically ever since World War II. World War II is obviously, in our lifetime, the biggest atrocity that we have ever seen, and we talk a lot about things becoming like a Nazi state. And we use this kind of language during, George Bush's presidency. We used it during, the left used it during it. Whoever wasn't your president, you use these terms like, oh, we're becoming a Nazi state, we're becoming a fascist regime. So it's not that interesting anymore to say we're becoming like Nazi Germany, even though we might be. But what I thought was really interesting, Josh, and I know that you have read quite a few books on World War II. You're obviously a white guy in his 40s, so you've done the requisite thing, which is take up an interest in World War II. What was the tipping point in Nazi Germany where they became the fascist regime that you kind of couldn't come back from? And are we close to that?
It was February 28th, 1933.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened February 20th, 1933?
That was right after the Reichstag fire. Okay. So the parliament of Germany was burnt to the ground, and actually it wasn't burnt to the ground. It was burnt. It was lit on fire. Right. And Adolf Hitler and the Nazis took that opportunity to suspend most of the rights that we would call here the rights to habeas corpus. Okay. And so that is, they basically said, the government no longer has to tell you or allow you to protest legally against your detention. We can, and that's what they did. They passed a series of laws that made it illegal for people to demonstrate against the government, to speak out, anything like that. So once, and you see this in other democracies that pivot towards autocracy. Once you suspend the right of habeas corpus, that is for a person to legally challenge their detention by the government, you are an autocracy.
What is habeas corpus? That's got to be Latin for what?
For show me the body, produce the body. Oh, so basically it means, and my legal colleagues out there who want to correct me and go, you're totally wrong, fine. Please bring the comments, help us with our discourse on this. I think we all need to know about this right now. When you no longer, as the government, have to produce the person you've detained in a court of law and give reason for why you've detained them.
There it is.
Then it's game. Sense. Then it's game over.
Okay, so you think we're there?
I think we are all. Our government has already, in some circumstances, especially around folks who they say are in the country illegally, right, have, for all intents and purposes, blown right past habeas corpus. And now there are reports coming out that they're talking about suspending it, which the Constitution says that can be done.
No, but they're reasoning this whole, like, under the threat of invasion. Like, if you're a Republican, and I'm not talking about the Republicans who are just, bowing down to Trump in terms of the legislature. If you're a Republican, just normal person, and you feel like we're being invaded, you are soft. You are absolutely soft. We're not being invaded by Mexico. We're not being invaded by Mexicans. And that's the justification that they're trying to use to suspend a habeas corpus. this is not an invasion, people. These people are not coming here to invade us. They're not coming here to harm us. I understand that you think that they're breaking the law. This is not what an invasion looks like. And to use that as justification is, one, either you believe it and you're soft, or you're purposefully misusing it, and then you're an asshole or a criminal. But either way, the idea that they can get around this because it's an invasion is just lunacy. It's just absolute lunacy. Okay, so that's all just super scary stuff, Josh. This is kind of a funny one in my world, but it's not funny given the context. So I'm writing this book right now. I'm adapting a book. It has a lot of biblical themes. And so I did some research on Mary Magdalene. Josh, what's the one thing most people know about Mary Magdalene?
She's a whore, Jeff.
Okay, thank you for the raucous language there, Josh. Most people know of her as a prostitute. She's not. She's not at all. That was a term that was given to her by a priest in the 6th century. He conflated Mary Magdalene with Mary Bennett. And I'm not even so sure that Mary Bennett was a prostitute either, now that I'm looking at the history. But apparently Mary Magdalene was the badass of badasses when it came to being an apostle. All the other apostles, all the men, fled when Jesus was arrested. She stood at his side even during his crucifixion. She carried his body, and then was the one who discovered his body 3 days later. She was basically, there was some kissing involved with Jesus. Everyone thought that she was kind of his girlfriend, not a prostitute. She was a total badass. And it took one guy 500 years later to just look at her and say, slut. And now that's what we think of her. And I just look at all these fucking social media posts that I see today, where guys will just comment on women's sexuality and try and reduce women as much as they can. And I'm like, man, we have not changed in 2,000 years. But in terms of my own feminism, it also reminds me that we need to look at the narratives around women in history and think, is that even true? One of the things that we think about when it comes to Amelia Earhart was, sure, she wanted to fly around the world, but she crashed. Maybe she didn't crash, Josh. Maybe she just wanted to get away from men. Maybe that's all it was.
Okay.
And it bothers me so much that I believed that for so long. And obviously I can do my own research when it comes to these people, but this is just a perfect example of an exceptional woman brought down by a shitty man with one word. And I don't know, that's just something that happened to me this week, and I thought it was worth mentioning.
I agree with you, and we have to do better.
Yeah. Thank you for the expert analysis. The expert analysis there.
Best color man in the game.
Best color man in the game. Okay, so Josh, we covered Last of Us a couple weeks ago, and I made the comment that I wasn't going to like it because it didn't have the same theme. It had a new theme. The first, theme being, returning to love, and the second season, it's about hatred and stopping the cycle of violence. I find myself watching it, and I dislike it for a completely different reason than I thought I would.
Ooh.
I hate their coiffed and beautiful hair. This is one of those things that drives me nuts. If you're in a post-apocalyptic world, you don't have time to go to the salon. And all of these young characters have these really nice fitted Henleys and perfectly cut hair that's kind of drooping down over their eyes so they can be all emo and shit. You don't have that in the apocalypse. And when shows get that wrong, for whatever reason, it drives me nuts. And I don't think that they did it wrong in the first season. I think that they had appropriate hair. But in season 2, it's all these young characters now, and their hair is just nicely trim tight. even though they've been on the road for months or weeks or whatever it is. And it's those details that drive me nuts. Do you remember Jericho?
Oh, yeah.
They did such an amazing job with their wardrobe. And then you got to the hair, and it was perfectly coiffed, and it drove me crazy. So this is driving me nuts about Last of Us Season 2.
No, I don't know. I thought I liked Jericho. I thought Johnny Depp did a great job in that whole show.
Johnny Depp light. Great joke. Well done, Skeet. Well done, Johnny Depp light.
All right, Jeff. I got one other thing I want to hit you with, and I just want to see your reaction to this.
Okay.
So you and I are both sports fans. We both really like the NFL, and we've also been following the saga of Deion Sanders' kid, Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the tush push, and I have thoughts.
I'm not going to talk about the tush push. What I am going to talk about is this LA Times story that hit the press yesterday. So there's a man suing the NFL for $100 million over his emotional distress around Shedeur Sanders' draft drop.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
What's your reaction?
Man, if he can just settle that for like 100th of what he's asking, good on him. No, that's absolutely ridiculous. That's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. I can't believe that's a real thing. Yeah, that's nuts. I don't know what else to say about that other than this should just get thrown out, immediately. We've definitely become a litigious nation, and I also can't believe a lawyer took that case.
Well, he could have filed it. I mean, you can file things pro se.
Sure, but do you think he did? Probably not.
I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing the facts of that article.
Jeff, I brought you the headline. I read the whole headline.
Well, what am I supposed to think about that other than that's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard?
Well, I thought about this, and I'm like, from a sports fan and from a person who just reads headlines of news articles, I had the same reaction as you did. When I thought about it in the context of my other role as a psychiatrist, I'm like, it sounds like there's other stuff going on, and if this is the way that you have to kind of get your needs met around satisfying whatever loss or anxiety you have about this, again, I'm not sure if this is the way that I would do it, but I do wonder if we shouldn't just take these headlines as more like, do you need what kind of help do you need?
Sure.
So anyways, that's what I thought.
Well, okay. I actually really appreciate that, Josh, because I want to that actually has a lot to do with mental health, because it's not just about what that guy needs. It's so many times we look at someone acting in a certain way and we're like, that person's acting crazy. And it's like, yeah, if somebody is acting in a way that you think is off, you check in with them, see if they need any help, first and foremost, because I just did exactly what I'm saying we shouldn't do, which is like, oh, that's insane and blah, blah. But it's like, yeah, no, there's guys probably struggling with something else, and it is reaching for empathy first. And so I think that was worth bringing up, if not in a way that showed off that I'm a lesser man than you, because I didn't meet the moment with empathy.
That was not my intention. That was absolutely not my intention.
I'm going to sue you for $10 million for emotional duress or distress. Notice I didn't go $100 million, because I know when enough is enough. I know when it's too much.
Okay. Okay, Jeff. Okay.
All right, Josh. I think that's everything. Are you excited for the new Fantastic Four? Getting back to Thunderbolts, we saw that at the end. Were you excited for Fantastic Four?
I am. I think they've got a chance to do it right. They've done it really wrong. Mm-hmm. They've had 3 attempts at making the Fantastic Four movie franchise go. None of them have really caught fire. And I like the retro-futuristic alternate universe in which they're putting this one in. So yeah, I hope it goes. And look,
they can't be doing that though, because they see the Fantastic Four rocket enter the solar system from New Avengers.
You clearly didn't hear that they said it was an extra-dimensional craft.
Can I tell you my theory on why Fantastic Four never works?
Sure.
It's the same reason why a lot of the DC films don't work, and it doesn't have to do with you saying they're gods. They got the human part right. But a lot of the DC films don't work is because they start with the ensemble. So they started with Avengers and introduced the Avengers in the ensemble. Marvel doesn't do that. They start with a character, and then they bring them into the world later. And what it allows you to do is actually connect with them on a human level, because we watch them singularly go through a change. You know, starting with Iron Man, like it was just Iron Man. It was just Tony Stark, and we learned about Tony, and then each person has their own movie. We learn about Captain America, and then they come together. But when you start with 4 characters, it's really hard to emotionally connect with any of the 4 of them, because we're not necessarily going through 4 different journeys and 4 different, 4 different opportunities to change. You're just going to have a plot. You're not going to have a story that has a clear theme and a clear character change. Maybe they'll focus on one person. Thunderbolts was great because they really focused on Yelena. This was Yelena's movie more than it was anybody else's.
No, it was.
But we also have seen Yelena in other things, so it worked on 2 levels. But I think that Fantastic Four always does itself a disservice because they start with the ensemble and not letting us grow and empathize with individual characters.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
well,
it's a little bit doomed from the start.
Nice.
Yeah, I did not plan that, by the way.
That was great, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, everything Pedro Pascal touches turns to gold right now. So, we'll see.
Yeah, if you haven't seen The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, go watch it. It's incredible. Thanks, as always, for watching or listening to Cinemental and our coverage of Thunderbolts. And this time we talked a lot about Marvel. If you like this episode, please subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also watch clips of Cinemental on YouTube, where we'd love to hear what you would like us to cover next. You can also watch my companion series, The One Thing, where I take a deeper dive into screenwriting, both available on the Large in Charts channel on YouTube. Follow Dr. Josh Jones, America's Psychiatrist, on Blue Sky. This has been a Large in Charts production. For Josh Jones, I am Jeff Jones, and we will see you next week. I'm pretty sure for Mission Impossible. We're going to cover all the Mission Impossible movies and give them to you in one 30-minute to an hour Cinemental truth bomb. So look forward to that. Yahtzee.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.